up, I experienced many different types of education. This includes public, charter, and private, and this was due to the fact I moved a lot throughout like my entire early childhood. And like going through this has like given me like a different perspective I wouldn't normally have had if I hadn't moved a lot. So I guess this story starts when I was about in kindergarten, maybe like first grade. I went to private school in Arizona at like the school called Montessori, and I didn't realize how privileged I was being able to go to that school and getting like a better education than most. Like, we're gonna come back to this later, but I was learning like advanced mathematical concepts. Like in first grade, like I was learning long division and fraction multiplication as like a kindergartner, and I learned a lot, but I realized that private school wasn't working for me, so I decided, okay, I want to go to public school. So probably around first grade, middle of first grade, I think, I decided, okay, I'm going to public school. And going to public school, it wasn't much different. I realized that I was definitely learning less stuff than I was at private school, but I do think that it was a better change for my social well-being, and I just went through it. I didn't see any real issues with it. So probably like, I go there for a year, and we decide that we're going to move to Colorado. So while my parents look for a house in Colorado, I get to stay with my grandma for about 8 to 6 months, and when I stayed with my grandma, she lives on the Oto Reservation in Red Rock, Oklahoma. And so, since I was staying with her for like over 8 months, I had to go to school at the reservation school. And going here, it was cool. I mean, I could tell things were different. You could definitely tell the area was less wealthier than my previous schools, but it was cool being around other people like me who were the same ethnicity as me, because like we had similar opinions and stuff. Well, okay, I go on the first day of school. I don't realize anything is wrong. I am just like happy to be at a new school, happy to be with my grandma. So probably like the second day was when the real things started, like when I actually like noticed a problem. So my teacher decides we're starting math, and my teacher pulls out like her whiteboard and says we're going to be learning how to count. And counting in second grade is a little bit behind, if you ask me, because we weren't even doing that at my old Arizona public school. And so I went to my teacher. I told her, I already knew this. Is there some way that I can like learn something else? And she says yes. So she gives me this placement test. I do good on the placement test. So then she decides, okay, we'll help you learn more. So in order to learn more math, I had to there was like this closet, and there was like a monitor in the middle with a keyboard. Like, that one scene, that iconic scene from Poltergeist where that kid is in front of the TV? It looked just like that. And I had to learn how to do math on that. And like, I couldn't even see what I was writing on. And on top of that, like, I couldn't even like ask the teacher for help because she was out there teaching the other students. So in exchange for me being able to learn further content, it made my education even worse. I just dealt with it for the 6 months. Like, I just realized, okay, I'm going to be moving schools. This isn't as big of a deal. And life just went on. I went on to Mountain View, and then over time I went to Legacy. But probably my 8th grade year field trip, or not field trip, but like vacation, 8th grade vacation with my father, that's when like my perspective, like I finally started putting things together. So we went to Tulsa, in northern Tulsa, because I think I just read The Outsiders, and going to Tulsa, we visited where the like Outsiders was shot, and I could definitely see the area was a little bit on the less wealthier side. So then my dad brings me to this area and tells me like this is where this prospering black community used to flourish, and so I look at it, and like you can see the pictures. It was like, I think it was like referred to as Black Wall Street. It was pretty cool. Well, I come to learn later that it got burned down by envious white people, and like over $20 million was lost. So I'm like, I think to myself, oh, okay. So then this goes to the back of my head. And then I believe my cousin just graduated from Frontier like right after this, and I could see that only 3 people out of his graduating class actually went to college. And so I decided I didn't put 2 and 2 together until probably the day after his graduation. And looking back, I realized that something was wrong here. Like, why hadn't that black community rebuilt itself? And like, why was only 3 people who graduated and are actually going to a 4-year institution from my cousin's college? And I decided to put 2 and 2 together, and what I found was surprising. So when we look at, I decided like, okay, this probably has to do something with education, because I went to the same school as my cousin who graduated with only 3 people. And I'm like, okay, I wasn't able to learn much there, so I decided to check out the per pupil funding per school, which is about how much money is allocated per student. And then I decided to look at my own school, Legacy. And what I found was super surprising. Frontier only had $700 per pupil compared to Legacy's $9,514. And as soon as I saw this, I was like, how are you supposed to like actually educate a child with only like $700 per student? And this just made me like, I don't know, I got like this weird feeling. And so I decided, okay, let's see if this links up to like education, like how much people have a degree. And I could only see 6.3% of people in Red Rock actually had a full 4-year institution bachelor's degree or higher. The rest only had a high school diploma. Let's look at how much money these people actually have. Like, maybe they aren't able to fund the education because they don't have money. And so I decided to look at this. And I could see that the poverty rates were also like extremely high. With Northern Tulsa with the huge African American concentrated population, having 1/3 of like the whole African American population there being like below poverty. And then I did look at Red Rock, and I can see 12.12% of all races are poverty. And that might not seem like a lot, but that's like 10 out of 100 people. 1 out of 10 people are in poverty when you think about it. And there was a less than 1.4% generational wealth change, which means these kids were only making 1.4% more or 1.4% less on average than their parents. So I think about this, I'm like, so I decided to put 2 and 2 together. And I realized that it's an endless cycle. These guys don't have money because they can't get a good education. And most jobs today in the modern job marketplace, you need that 4-year degree. And if you don't have a 4-year degree, you're not going to be able to have a job that can actually sustain your family. And so I think about this even more, and I'm like, okay, maybe this is why minorities have actually a lesser income because of these concentrated areas, because most Native Americans live on the reservation. And if most Native Americans live on the reservation, that's just going to cause the mean average income of them to go down. And this is because they can't get a good education and they can't get money. And I've been looking at both sides of my family. My family didn't grow up on the reservation or more successful than my family who grew up on the reservation, and they have just way less money. And so it's affected my life. And so what's happening basically is that there's just these cycles of endless areas with certain groups of people, and they just aren't able to get out of it because there isn't any money going through it there because these guys just aren't educated. So there's not an exact solution that we can do to fix this, but I mean putting education bills, voting for these education bills as a voter. You might not be supporting these lower income areas like the Native reservation, but you're supporting your local areas because I guarantee there's a spot of low income that's just in this cycle that isn't able to get out of it because they don't have money to fund their education. And if you think about it too, it'll boost the overall economy of your area, and there'll be more people working more jobs because they will have an education. And so as a student, this isn't a topic that has been brought up. We've known that this has been happening, but we've just overlooked it. If we look at these teacher protests or these education fund problems, we never see that it's mostly minorities who get affected by this like cycle, even though it is. And like students, like I know you've seen like even the racial difference in honors and AP classes. Like there's a racial like difference. Like there's a more high majority white population than like minorities, just because these minority kids don't grow up from like these low income cycled areas. And so like if you're like in your geography class, bringing it up or like just even spreading it around as a student, that'll like spread the idea and like that'll get it more out there. And as a lawmaker, you know, I have a temporary solution, but I don't know like the outcomes of it. But like making like neighboring areas with income flowing through them feed some of their money or taxes into these lower income areas to make them self-sustainable, so that if these kids have money in their education, just even for a little bit, for one generation, they'll make money actually start flowing through the area so it'll become self-sustainable. And like doing this would like on a wide scale would like make America's like GDP, make America's like economic status go up exponentially, because more people will have more jobs and they'll be more educated and they'll be able to do more things. Thank you.